before you go to bed, my baby. Whisper a little prayer for me, my baby, and tell our stars above. This is dedicated to the one I love. This is dedicated to the one I love. This is dedicated to the one I love. That's it! Yay! I'm Allison. This is Ruby. You're you. Yay! Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Ted Hen. Thanks, other Matt. Thanks to these lovely gents who I'm not going to do the good remembering right now. Everybody, it's such a generous and beautiful thing that these things even happen, and they're really important for Baltimore. And thanks to all of y'all for getting slightly warmer in this tiny room. Let's go drink a beer. Don't let yourself get hurt this time. Don't let yourself get hurt this time. Then I saw your face.
I want to whisper in your ear and tell you that I'm here and take you out to dance and maybe find romance. But you can't, so it's Mobtown life. I want to see the friends I miss, or give my mom a kiss, or get my hair cut right, or just sleep through the night. But you can't, so it's Mobtown life. Mobtown life, we'll drink with you forever. Mobtown life, in dark and stormy weather. Mobtown life, what else is there to do? I don't even know anymore. But pandemic together. So put on your Wednesday best, at least the top, I guess. We'll take you to the moon. It's live to your bedroom. It's tonight, and it's Mobtown life.
Mobtown Live is brought to you by Forgetting to Write Jokes Before the Top of the Show, with generous support by, I don't know, you'll probably watch anyway or something.
Welcome, everybody.
Hello. Nice to see you there.
We're back with Mobtown Live. My name is Sarah.
My name is Michael.
I'm coming at you from my childhood bedroom today, so pardon the difference in scenery. Today, we are incredibly lucky to have a very special guest, Delegate Wanika Fisher from the Maryland State House of Representatives. And Wanika is giving very generously of her time in between legislative things today. So we are going to dive right in, assuming she's here. Hachi, is she here?
That's not my job. Yes, but also yes.
Okay, but she is here. Great, awesome. So in that case, oh, we're here. Hi, Wanika.
Hello, Delegate Fisher.
Delegate Fisher is connecting to audio.
Connecting. Hi, Delegate Fisher.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Did you get my email about my timing today?
Oh, yeah, I did. And we're going to dive right in and then have you out of here when you need to be out of here. Are you like literally in session right now?
Yeah, I have another meeting on the other computer. Let me tell them I'm going to be unavailable.
Is that Freddie D in the background? That's Frederick Douglass.
It is.
Friends of the show will recognize Frederick Douglass, generous
Freddie D.
supporter.
So just while Delegate Fisher is doing that, Delegate Fisher is in the Maryland State House of Representatives. She's a freshman legislator. And she introduced a bill to set up a commission to research what it would look like to do reparations at the state level in Maryland. And, you know, conversations about reparations can get fraught. We are going to take it as an underlying assumption today that, Michael, how did you want to say this? That basically that
we're not having a discussion about whether or not reparations should happen. We're assuming they should, which is the case, and we're going to talk about how that might work, what it'd be like on the state level, et cetera. So if you have questions, feel free to toss them in the chat, but know that we're proceeding from that perspective.
Yes, exactly. So Delegate Fisher, thank you so much for being so generous with your time, even though you're literally in the middle of a bunch of stuff.
That's okay. I know it's that's the hard thing about Annapolis. It's like you have 90 days and this is when everyone wants to talk to you while you're doing the work. And I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Sarah, for having me, and Michael, and just great to support both of you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So for just to start, reparations can be kind of a fraught topic for various reasons. Can you explain what reparations mean to you?
So to me, reparations is basically a way in which a government or an entity or an institution would then either repay or make the person whole or a group whole for a wrongdoing or a liability in a situation. So we've seen forms of reparations being called different things for different groups. Obviously, the Jewish community and the government of Germany and other entities have paid Jewish community members in light of the Holocaust. We've seen, and that also has happened here in the United States. And then you've seen Japanese Americans receive money and other financial and social and economical benefits due to the fact that they were placed in internment camps during the World War II era. So that's basically what it is. It's, you know, I always look at it, it's making the person whole from an entity or community whole from an institutionalized and usually it's very massive and wrongdoing, something that is almost a travesty sort of level is where we've seen it.
Which I think it's fair to say slavery is one of the biggest.
Yes, probably so. One of the biggest. I always say you can't compare struggles, you know what I mean? I think it's really hard to quantify pain and destruction for any group, but slavery would be in the tops.
Yeah. So I this bill that you introduced, which is so cool, it isn't a bill to immediately do reparations, if I understand it correctly. It is a bill to set up a commission on reparations. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, for me, when I was looking at the legislation, something like reparations is obviously huge. You're talking about thousands of impacted descendants and other issues, and the commission will actually be able to help execute this mission. So what the commission will do, and slavery in particularly, and of course I've Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass, two very famous, flag me every day on these Zoom calls. Um, it is something that is hard and difficult for folks to sometimes quantify the wrongdoing. So for Japanese Americans or Japanese folks, immigrants that were in internment camps, there was a defined period of time. They had a record of who went in. It's a little bit more quantified. Slavery in Maryland was in the span of about 200 years. The first the first Africans bought in shackles here was in the early 1860s, and so it's commission is really there to help folks in my bill to do the application process. The plight for a lot of Black Marylanders and Black Americans is that they don't know where they're from. They don't know what ancestor was where, and so State Archives has done an amazing job. If you ever have a chance to pick up they have a book that they did on slavery, and a lot of the work they did behind Harriet Tubman's bust and Frederick Douglass' bust that's here in the State House. So it's not just here's dishing out the benefits, here's the application process, here's how we're going to have people apply and be able to quantify what individuals get, and to have stakeholders at the table to actually then execute the reparations package proposed in the bill.
That presumably some of this will be part of what's studied in the proposal, but can you speak at all to some of the issues surrounding like we have actual descendants of enslaved people that obviously that would be applicable for this. Then we also have people that may have moved to the United States later and who also suffered from the legacy of racism in like kind of piggybacking on it.
Yeah, I think of any piece of legislation, not everyone's going to be happy, and not everyone in your own community is going to be happy. So, today I'm actually wearing like a traditional African garb from my home country in Nigeria, and I myself don't qualify in this bill. So I'm a new I'm a first generation American. I do have some free slave descendants on my grandmother's side that actually were brought to America and went through Liberia and came back into Sierra Leone and then into Nigeria. But it's very faint in my family history. I mean, it would just be very difficult. And I don't think they were in Maryland, actually, because they were the Jackson last name. So I do have a bit of that in my genealogy. But I would, for example, not qualify in this bill. And I know some people feel that, anyone with, a direct African descent should. There's different variations. For me, I did what as an attorney in our state, and, this is a proposal, it's a bill. It gets discussed and edited and amended, and if it's something that's actually going to move here in Maryland, in this bill, it would be direct descendants from individuals that were enslaved in the state of Maryland. Also, on a legal stance, as people will sue over a bill like this. It's very hard to open up the state of Maryland legally to liability it didn't commit. So there'll be a ton in my own county, for example, in Prince George's County, a lot of Prince Georgians come from North Carolina, and their descendants are from slaves in North Carolina. A lot of Prince Georgians wouldn't qualify in this bill because it had to be a Maryland plantation, right? And so that's why I think HB 40 on the federal level is so necessary, because there's a lot of states in the South and others that would never consider something like reparations unless the federal government mandated them to. But it's very hard in state law. If I go down the street to the Court of Appeals, if I say that the state of Maryland should be liable for acts that didn't commit, that's gonna be hard in court, right? So
Gotcha.
I also had to draft something that I think could stand up, and what I think can stand up is descendants of folks that were descendants of Maryland slaves that were in bondage in our state, in which you can look back at the rolls. I believe, I don't have all the dates, but it was like the late 1800s. We passed an act that said no, the Maryland General Assembly I'm a part of, in law passed that no descendant of Africans can benefit from white society, was literally put into our code. And so so those are the things that legally are going to be able to substantiate this bill, right? I'm not the federal government. And so that's, so people have different views on this bill. Not everyone will be happy. Not everyone would be served. And then people don't know how expansive it is. I don't have a Maryland residency requirement. There are descendants of Maryland slaves that moved to Chicago that maybe want to apply and receive their benefit from Maryland, right? So it's like twofold. So, I can't shun a state that's not doing it and then saying, well, if your family moved 10 years ago because you got a good job offer in Chicago, and even though your family is here in bondage for 100 years, you don't deserve Maryland reparations because you don't live in Maryland. You know what I mean? So it's saying that, so I did the best I could, I think, to be fair, something that I think would legally hold held up in court. And there are different benefits to be said. So, for example, it's not just in the bill; it doesn't just cover back pay for free labor, but it has, a descendant can get free tuition to any Maryland institution. The wiping of from student loans, maybe there's different ideas in there about no capital collateral down for business loans. So there's different things that, Michael, as you said, those that have to still feel the ills of Jim Crow and of racism, then maybe you do open it up to folks.
Gotcha.
Who are a certain income bracket or something, something that's passable. I always look at what's passable. We can dream everything, but I still need 71 votes and 26 and more for an override. And with this governor, it's definitely something he would override. So there are ideas to be more inclusive. There are ideas to be less. I would say, though, it is very hard legally. I don't see how you can open up the state to liability. It technically didn't do, even though those descendants obviously live here. But I would say to those of my brothers and sisters, whether they're a new African immigrant like myself or Caribbean, or others, a lot of my Caribbean friends feel a certain way about the bill because they wouldn't qualify even though they were in bondage in the Caribbean. But I think when you start a conversation, you start good policy, that doesn't mean that Caribbean governments might not be something they want to do. It might not be. I think if the United States if HB 40 actually moved on the federal level, I think you would see the United Nations and bigger governments maybe come together and take responsibility. Like, I think that the government of England, of the United Kingdom, under the Commonwealth government, a Commonwealth coalition of governments that still exists, should probably take accountability and pay for the slavery that they inflicted across this world, and take accountability. A lot of the Democrats are super interested in this topic.
That's really cool. So you talked a little bit about how it could look at the state level with, whether it's direct payments or free college tuition. Are there other, I guess, what do you see the difference between the state level reparations and what federal level reparations would look like?
Well, I think the federal government obviously has more access to money and resources, and sometimes I always think their ability to just make up money when they're talking about billions. I'm like, oh, really? I'm not in the weeds of the federal budget. I'm not that high up the food chain at all. So I think they have the ability to, demand states to either pay into it. They have a greater sense of being able to codify and create regulation for companies that have benefited from slave labor to pay into the pot. So like, I have that as part of this bill because, for example, there are very amazing, great, nice Marylanders that maybe don't identify as African American or not, that had nothing to do with slavery. Their family was never in it. Now, do they benefit maybe from white privilege and privilege that comes from slavery and the oppression of others? Sure. But they didn't directly have a hand, yet they're paying into it because they're taxpayers. So so are people who are benefits
benefiting
who are
from the
and
reparations.
so exactly. And so why isn't Wells Fargo paying into it when we all know Wells Fargo benefited from had slave labor? Right. And so that's something with interstate commerce and the feds being a bit bigger that my bill creates companies that do commerce in Maryland that benefited from slavery. They should pay a certain percentage into this pot to, to do the right thing. But the federal government has much more ability to do that and enforce that than we do here at the state level. I think they can do just bigger amounts of money with whether it's community investment grants, direct payments over time. Senator Cory Booker has a great legislation around baby bond bills. Like when a baby's born, they get a bond, bond and things like that. So I think the federal government just has more reach than we do. But I think in Maryland, I mean, we definitely have, like I said, the ability to find benefits we can give. We have the ability to help people in the application process. I mean, it's not that hard. There are plantations in Prince George's, in Baltimore, all over the Eastern Shore. I mean, I have to tell you, I have a picture, not on my phone, but I didn't print it out. When we did the bust reveal of Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman, I got to meet Frederick Douglass's and Harriet Tubman's descendants.
Whoa.
And Frederick Douglass's descendants, she literally looks like him. I mean, I almost fainted. It's a little breathtaking. And I think, and so to act like we don't know where people are, we do. We have census data. We have tons of things that can, I mean, even if any of you visited the African American Museum on the mall, it's intense. It's amazing. I mean, the data is there for us to do the right thing. Is it going to be 100% perfect? No. But no government, that's the thing. No government program is ever 100% perfect, right? So I just think that's standard. I think the criticisms on the other side that like, you don't know this person, you don't know that person. Every government program we do is never 100% perfect. Never is. So why would this one be? I don't know. So I think I would say the bigger difference is the fight and also the command of state governments to uphold it. Or the federal government can always just overstep the local government. They can just have a direct, federal application through Department of, Health and Human Services, however they set it up. You don't even need to, if you're in North Carolina, you're a descendant of a slave in North Carolina, you don't have to deal with the state of North Carolina. You just apply for your direct benefit from the federal government, which I think would end up happening. And I think I'm a huge believer in Congressman Jackson Lee, and I think HB 40 is the right thing to do.
Michael, did you have a question?
Yes.
Okay.
Just very, very quickly, in terms of framing the boundaries surrounding this, how do you envision presenting it in such a way that it's not because the size of the wound is so large that it's difficult to quantify. And I don't actually have any sympathy with this view, but I can absolutely see people saying, like, on the state level with a limited budget, how do we manage to say this equals the size of the wound and then we're done?
I think we don't say that. I think we say this will never equal the size of the wound that's been done to the African American community. But as a state, we have to mentally, financially, and physically actually heal. And so this is a part of our state healing. When you break a leg and you fix it, your leg it's got a tweak to it, right? It's never 100%, but you got your leg fixed and you can walk again. Mm-hmm. And that's what the bill is supposed to do. I don't think it's ever going to be a silver bullet to eradicate. I don't even think a federal bill that would fund it would eradicate the trauma, the mental abuse, the stigma. I mean, the fact that when I was a little girl, I never thought anyone would vote for me with a name Wanika. Those kind of things will never be healed by money, but I think, or benefits, but I think the fact that the average Black American family cannot afford, let alone, this is the data before COVID.
Right.
I don't even know. The average Black American family cannot afford a $500 emergency. All of the wealth income gaps, all the disparities that we can address. And so I think, the folks that are bigger than me, our governor, president of the Senate Speaker, all the politicians, our Congress people, our federal partners, folks that are bigger than me, I don't think you lead with that. I think you say that this is part of our journey to healing. And the healing is you're never brand new. You're healed though. And I think the kind of just mental rapport, and I think of any person, whether they're white, black, any minority, Asian, would feel to see a state like Maryland take responsibility says a lot. And in our mentality on how we interact with one another and what our children will be thinking about, and our children's children will be thinking about. So that's what I would say to that. I don't expect it to ever. I don't think there's anything anyone could ever offer to erase with an eraser on a piece of paper slavery for this and for the state or for the world. But what I do think it can do is bring us to a society where I feel equal, where I'm not talking about the same things my grandmother talked to me about to my children. And hopefully my great grandchildren won't even be thinking about that. They'll just be existing and thriving and figuring out life and not worrying about the things that I worry about or that my parents worried about or my grandparents worried about.
That's a hell of an answer.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I could keep going on forever, but I want to respect your time. We got 1 minute. So just very quickly, how can people support this bill?
Yes, what you can do is you can contact anyone and the Health Government Operations Committee, which is chaired by Shane Pendergrass, and the vice chair is Jocelyn Payman-Elnick. You can email them, tweet them that they should be trying to support this legislation. I actually don't think I even said the bill number, which I don't even have memorized in my brain because
I'm pretty sure that I put the bill in in the chat to be commented. Yes, hopefully it's in the chat. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you can just tweet the bill number. Sorry, I don't have all my bill numbers memorized before I came on. And just ask them. It's in the code in the bill. It's called the Harriet Tubman Community Investment Act. And so, just anyone that's on the Health Government Operations Committee, leadership here in the House, advocating that this is something we want to see moved, always helps. And I think even calling your local state senator or delegate and saying, hey, have you seen this bill? I'm really interested in it. Hope you're a co-sponsor. Co-sponsorship was wonky this year because of COVID. We couldn't physically do it. It's a long story. Hope you're supporting this bill. I think that kind of traction helps. Being on a show like yours, Sarah and Michael, really, really helps. I was interviewed by Tracy Wilkins last week, they were covering people are really interested. People are ready. I think the culmination of COVID, seeing the disparities and Black Lives Matter going on really shows it. But thank you so much for having me again. I do apologize. I have to go to my.
Don't worry. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you
for all the work
you have
you're
a
doing.
great evening.
You too. Bye, Wanika.
Bye-bye.
That's not right. Dennis thought he was ready. Now he's ready. He's a little bit loud.
We are killing time and are live or not live.
We are live now.
Oh, hello.
Hi, everyone again. Sorry for the technical difficulties. We had a number of issues today, primarily that Baltimore City's internet totally sucks. And poor Hachi has to manage the fact that the internet sucks while managing us. Also managing us not putting things in the schedule. So what were we talking about, Michael?
We were talking about how cool she was, and also that it's intimidating to have Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman looking at you. I just thought that was an awesome setup. Not important.
I wish we had gotten to talk to her a little bit more about how, not that this is the point at all, but like how the trying to break the wealth gap with reparations would be beneficial to all of American society. That's what I don't quite understand when people are upset about reparations. Like, I can understand their arguments around how complicated it is, or, you know, I don't agree, but I can even understand or see what they're saying when they talk about how, you know, I didn't have slaves or whatever. And I disagree with all of that. But what I don't understand is why anyone would think that getting rid of the wealth gap would be bad, unless you're a corporation making money off that wealth gap.
There was an absolute, that's exact, like there's an absolutely wonderful part of one of Frederick Douglass's autobiographies, one of the three, where he addresses that exact thing. Was that when he was enslaved in Maryland, he assumed that the North must have been impoverished because they didn't have all this free labor, and that it was probably like an apocalyptic wasteland. And then when he escaped and got to the North, he was shocked to find out that it was much more prosperous. And the moral being that these systems benefit a very few, but actually degrade society as a whole. It even degrades the culture, the intellect, and the lives of the people who benefit from it.
Yeah, exactly. And I can't understand how someone can complain about all of the side effects and symptoms of poverty, but then not want to fix poverty in this very, like, slavery and Jim Crow were economic systems that were set up specifically to create the wealth gap that we see. So, like, setting up economic systems that specifically decrease that wealth gap seems like a no-brainer to me. So I don't know.
I saw something interesting in the chat from the great Hannah Lane.
Hannah.
She says these old colonial Maryland families need to contribute.
Yeah.
Which you know, it does. If you come from a rich ass family that can trace its wealth directly back to slavery, it seems like the right thing to do. Like, throw back into the pot.
Yeah, exactly. And then doubly so for corporations and institutions that are, you know, sitting pretty off of all that. But it's probably time to introduce our show, since we didn't get to in the beginning.
Yeah, let's chat it up.
Yeah, so this is Mobtown Live, everybody. We happen to have this every single week, and you should go like and subscribe to all our channels. Mobtown Live on Facebook, at Mobtown Live on the Instagram, YouTube.
Mostly YouTube. That's the one, because it'll alert you. It'll say, yo, Mobtown Live is here in your brain.
You'll never miss a show.
Yeah.
It'll be great. And then we got the money aspect of this. Which
is, you give $10 if you can.
Totally.
To at Mobtown-Live on Venmo.
I believe that it says it right down there. No, right down there. Yeah.
There we go.
So if you're willing and able to give, go for it. This week, we were so lucky, obviously, to have Wanika Fisher on, and we'll probably touch back on that a little bit later again. We also have Opt Out, which is the synth duo by Jessica Keys and Patrick McMinn of Bedlam Brass, and they're going to be playing music for us in just a second. I'm super excited about that. Next week, we have Shauna Potter, who is, you've seen her before because she performed with her band War on Women. And she has a book called Making Spaces Safer. And it's about venues and people making spaces safer from sexual harassment. And we're going to talk to her. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. If there's ever two people qualified to have that interview,
it's us. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm interested in specifically talking to her about what that looks like post, like during and post COVID, because I can imagine we have a venue that, you know, we're constantly, it seems like these issues pop up when we're most strapped for energy and attention and financial everything. And suddenly we have an issue like that. And I'm interested to talk to her about balancing what a customer versus an institution is responsible for and how you manage that in the apocalyptic times.
Yes.
Because as you've often said, Michael, if we don't make money, there's no space to make safe.
Oh, you make me sound bad, but no, it's true.
No, I meant that in a nice
Yeah.
way. Like the times when I get like really, really in something, and then I'm like, wait, but it still has to be a fun space to be in, because otherwise no one's going to come, and then we're not going to have anyone to try and keep safe.
Like, it would be safe if we put like blinders on everyone and put them in a bubble and just like pumped music, and that'd be very expensive and also not fun.
Right, exactly. So it's a balance. And I believe that the subtitle of her book, or at least in her bio, includes like basically how to have a good time and not have to constantly be thinking about making spaces safer. So I'm really excited to talk to Shauna.
Yeah, that sounds great.
And then we also have Anaya Taylor coming back. Anaya was on last week talking to us about Healing Cities and the trauma-informed care team from the mayor's office. And she's going to be performing her poetry, which I'm pretty stoked about.
Yes.
Yes. So send us $10 if you can. Like and subscribe to all our stuff. Do you have anything to add, Michael?
Well, is Sarah Stroop coming on next week?
Oh yeah, Sarah
Yeah,
Stroop is coming
we-
on. Tell us
we
about her.
We have a crazy new segment that has not fully been named yet, but the gist of it is that we are going to bring in for shorter interviews people who are doing some interesting stuff that does not fit any conceivable category. And there's going to be sort of like a characters and or American originals segment. And boy, do we have a character for you. Sarah Stroop is a professor of mine from way back, and just a
Awesome. She's so awesome.
fascinating person. You will want to hear what she has to say. I am certain.
Yes, I agree. And then lastly, the week after that, we're going to have a band called Songwriter X and the Skeleton Band on. And this is a band that my siblings and I listened to a long time ago, because primarily, I think because my brother is obsessed with Halloween and got really into this semi-Halloween themed band. But it turned into this whole thing, and they are really unique and quirky and genuine. Like, they're very earnest and
Pure of heart.
They're pure of heart. And but because they're quirky, a lot of people try and tear them down. So we're going to have them on and talk to them a little bit about that and hear some of their music. They're going to debut a new song, and I'm pretty stoked on it. It's going to be pretty cool. So with that, I think we should probably
gap?
go to our music section. With that, we're going to pass this along to Abby.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Mobtown Live. I am here with two of my favorite people, Jessica Keys and Patrick McMinn, aka, for the purposes of tonight, opt out. And you're gonna opt in to this music.
You stole the one joke we had.
God damn it. So for the people, opt out is Jess and Patrick improvising long-form ambient music on acoustic instruments processed by electronics. Jessica is a band leader of Bedlam Brass and a member of Trucker Talk with yours truly, and Extada, and she also performs under the name Mueo. And Patrick is also a member of Bedlam Brass and Corsone with me, and also performs music under his own name. So it's basically a giant incestuous love family. And I'm so pumped to have you guys on the show and see what you have in store for us.
Yeah, so happy to have this opportunity to play for everybody.
So just to give a little bit of an idea of what's about to happen, what instruments are you going to play?
I play guitar through modular synthesizer and some home-built software I made to further process the sounds. And fun fact for those listening at home, it's Abby's guitar I'm playing.
Oh, yeah.
I'm playing your Telecaster.
That's
but
right.
But I tuned it real funny. Don't worry.
Great. What is a modular synthesizer?
That's a complicated question, but essentially it's sort of like the next step up from trying to build your own synthesizer components. It is a format that allows you to sort of swap out individual elements of a synthesizer to get exactly the kinds of sounds and timbres you're looking for. And since it's all, usually a synthesizer is wired, on the insides in the guts, and that's where all the magic happens. But in a modular system, all of the guts are available to you, so you can connect them yourself via little wires called patch cables. And that's how you create audio connections and ways of controlling the synthesizer.
Or my interpretation, if you take the circuit breaker in your house and you put it flat and then plug a bunch of stuff into it.
We here absolutely recommend doing that with your circuit breaker at home.
That's why our room looks like this right now, in fact.
Yep.
Yeah,
Get great artistic effects.
So Mobtown Live takes no responsibility for any alternate circuit breaker usage that may occur as a result of this show. It's like, if you don't know how to drive a fast car, don't jump in a Formula One car, or you do so at your own peril. What about you, Jess? What do you play?
I play the saxophone, and I also play modular synthesizer. We have pretty different setups, and so my saxophone goes through the synthesizer and it gets processed, and it adds interesting textures and timbres. And it's the video we made tonight is in our sunroom in our house, and so you'll only kind of see us in shadows, but we are playing live for you in this video that we recorded on Saturday night. But
giving away the magic.
So for the set that you're about to play, is this what they taught you to do at Music Conservatory?
Well, I studied the trumpet, which is one of the true great mistakes of my life. And I have a distinct memory of my teacher once asking me, "Do you have anything to talk about that relates to the trumpet in this lesson?" And I said no.
I did have a thought while we were recording that if my saxophone teacher heard what I was playing, he would probably not be disappointed in me.
Okay, there you go.
That's a lot of qualifiers. What we got there?
Yeah. Well, for all of you watching tonight, I do want to give a plug, which is that not only do they have this pink and purple room, but Jess and Patrick have a studio in their basement, Hidden Arrow Studios. And if you want to go make beautiful sounds, you should look them up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll help. We love collaborating. And if you want to collaborate on some music, just call us.
Is that hiddenarrow.com? What is
Hidden Arrow Studios.
Hidden Arrow Studios. I've spent a lot of time in there. It's great.
It's still a baby website, but our email address is on there.
So I think it's time. And anything you want to say by way of introduction before we see this magic?
Oh, wow.
Just settle in for the ride.
Yeah,
I hope you enjoy it.
I usually say when it's in front of people, like, sit back, close your eyes, but don't close your eyes. We look really great.
Yeah.
Put on some headphones, turn it up real loud, have a good time.
All right.
fuck, that was soothing.
I was Opt Out with Jess Keys and Patrick McMahon.
I felt like I was slowly drifting away on an ocean of breasts.
An ocean of breasts.
Yes. Yeah.
Naturally, yeah. That seems like something you would say. Yeah, I'm a little spacey. I just like was listening to that and it was, it gets in your brain.
Well, and the show's been stressful so far because all the changes, and then the ocean of breasts showed up, and now you don't know what to do. You're yo-yoing.
I know what to do. How about you make us a drink?
All right, folks. Sarah has spoken. You can see my little drink set up right here. Today, we're gonna make us a Vieux Carré, which is a drink I first got at Colette down on Charles Street. The defunct Colette with tragedy, one of the most pleasant bartenders on earth, was there. We spent the 2016 election in it. So here's how it works.
The greatest election. Wait, can we tell this story?
Yeah, you tell the story. Well, actually, yeah, let's tell it.
So Michael and I thought that the first woman president was going to be elected. And so we basically reserved the entire bar, and we like, whose TV was that?
We took it from my apartment.
Okay. In my mind, it was giant, but yeah, it was Michael's TV set up in the bar. A bunch of people came. We were all drinking and having a lovely time. And then, as you can imagine, it just went downhill. I wouldn't say it was fast. It was slow at first. And we were all like, oh, whatever. And then everyone was just drunk enough to cry when it started turning for Trump.
Somebody threw up. Yeah.
What'd you say?
Someone threw up, like cried and threw up.
Yeah, it was.
It was fucked.
It was a poor decision on our part, I think. I mean, it would have been really fun, but it turned into the entire bar, including the staff, crying while walking around.
So anyway,
go ahead.
No,
I was gonna say at some point we all just left, like before he was even elected. Once it became clear, everyone just kind of wandered off.
Anyway, this cocktail's, I first had it there. They didn't make it. And it fills me with good memories from that place, which even on that terrible night was a haven for us. So here's how it works. This is a boozy cocktail. It's sort of a one and done situation, like two of them, and you're not ill, but you're going. Like, you don't operate heavy machinery, that kind of thing.
There's no mocktail version of this, that's for sure.
And it involves Benedictine, which is rare. You're going to take your rye whiskey, okay, and you're going to pour 3/4 of an ounce into your handy mixing glass. A mixing glass is a very nice thing to have. Okay, boom, that's your rye whiskey. Then you're going to take a little cognac, another good thing to have on your back bar. You don't use it a lot, but you can put it in Sazeracs, and that's delicious. Right, Sarah?
Right.
3/4 of an ounce of that. Easy to remember because it's the same. All right. Oops. And you can take a sweet vermouth, which everybody must have in their fridge. Please refrigerate it. Don't put it out. It goes bad. It's a fortified wine situation. Boom, you dump that in there. Okay, that's your liquors. Then for mystical reasons that I don't really understand, but it tastes awesome. It smells good. Benedictine. It's got a real waft to it. You can put a bar spoon of that turkey in there. Boom. Okay.
That's a little tiny baby bit, right?
Just a little baby bit. And it gives it some like pungence that's very pleasant. And you fill your glass up with ice. And then you're gonna put a big ice cube, for which you can get molds at the store, into your cup. Boom. Then you take the bowl of the spoon, make sure it traces the outside of the inside of the glass, and you stir.
You got to do the little dance as you do that.
Feels good. You're working it, right? Okay. And then I forgot to bring my strainer up here, so I'm gonna use a spoon, but it's at home. You pour that turkey on in there. Okay. And then if I had a lemon, I would garnish it with a little lemon peel. But since I don't, I'm just gonna drink it. All
Wait,
right?
so can you tell us one more time what's in that?
We got, for the base liquors, rye whiskey in equal parts with cognac and sweet vermouth, and then a bar spoon, a little dash of Benedictine. Oh shit, and then I forgot. 1 dash of Angostura bitters, professional cocktail making. 1 dash of Peychaud's bitters, which you normally stir in the glass, but honestly, don't tell anyone. It's just as good. You put it in there and then give it a little swirl. And then what you do is you drink it and have someone drive you home. So,
Do you know
cheers.
anything about the history of the Vieux Carré?
I believe it's a New Orleans thing, but I wouldn't swear to that, nor do I care really. You know, all these other people, they know about the cocktail stuff. We demonstrating it on the internet. Do we know anything about cocktails aside from the recipes?
How to drink them?
Yeah, I'm an enthusiast for drinking cocktails. I let other people do the heavy brain lifting.
Well, thanks for that. I think that is not a well-known cocktail, so
It's really good.
it is. It's pungent. I hear you got some poetry for us, Michael. Are you going to read poetry to us?
I am not. I do not recite poetry, as you know. But we are going to talk poetry, but we're going to do it in a way that I think poetry gets a bad rap, and the people need to know about it because poetry belongs to the people. So let's start like this. My first recommendation for human beings is that 1, poetry will change your life. It's really good for you. 2, the best way into it, and I'm not kidding, I'm saying this on the internet, is an app. If you did not have any experience with poetry at all, or if you're like, oh, I'm afraid of it, download the National Poetry Foundation's app. Okay.
What? You've never told me this.
But yeah, this is sort of a secret I realized that I have kept to myself. I use it all the time as sort of like an oracle because it has a function. Let's see if I can pull it up here. I can't make you see it. Where the opening page of this is an old man thing. See, look at the screen on a screen. There's a button when you open it. All it has is a button that says spin, and then you hit it, boom, and it gives you a random poem by some fucking poet.
Whoa!
So there's no sense of like,
how do they vet these poets?
Or they have a huge collection of
Okay.
you know, old poets, dead poets, ancient poets, modern poets, which is nice because you get something from whenever. There's no way to get bogged down in like a big tome or anything. And then you read a poem and you go, do I like it? No? Move on. Spin again. Find something you like and then investigate.
Michael, what is a poem? Why is it not just a very small book?
That's
a good question.
Really good question,
yeah.
actually, Hachi.
Why, thank you.
I'll tell you in the quickest way possible. In ancient literatures from all across the world, poems are usually, they have shorter lines. In certain cultures, they are written in a meter that is based either on stress, as in English, or on syllable length, as in Greek and Latin. Some poetics, such as I believe Chinese poetics, go in a whole other direction where you know, like you've got your famous haiku situation. That's whatever, different thing entirely. So some are based like Hebrew poetry on parallelism, where you sort of repeat an idea in a different way that rounds it off. I'm not an expert on that shit. The point is, I would say that your best way to give a general definition would be, it is often an elevated form of expression. Elevated not in the sense it's hoity-toity, but sometimes it's purified, like it's condensed down to the most essential bits.
Should we have a Mobtown poetry contest?
No.
Oh, I was gonna say yes.
I say yes.
Just outvoted.
Yeah. We'll talk about it tomorrow when we all meet. But sorry, continue, Michael.
Oh yeah, so I'm actually a big fan of that app. The Poetry Foundation does great work, and I think approaching it randomly and then investing in things that interest you is great. I am ruthless with poetry because poetry that you do not like or poetry that's just bad is a killer. You find something you don't like, throw it across the room, move it on. Okay, don't listen to anybody, including me. But if you're gonna listen to somebody, that'd be me. Here's my recommendations. Right, 1. We're gonna do a serious one, and then a not so serious one. The Island of the Innocent. Look at it by Diane Glancy. Diane Glancy is on her mother's side, a Cherokee woman, and on her father's side, English and German, and has a complex relationship with these identities and been writing about it for a very long time. Very smart, person. This book is an investigation of the book of Job. So it is a
Whoa.
Cherokee woman using the book of Job to discuss like Native American grief, and then also tangling with her own sense of not being as Native American as she would hope to be, or is she too white, these kind of things. But for those of you who don't know the book of Job, it's probably the best book in the Bible and the most thunderously painful to read and life-changing. It's about grief and loss and how the gods don't care about us. And she investigates it ruthlessly in poems that are very kind of experimental. Some of them are prose poems, which goes against everything I just said, Hachi. So it's a convergence of like European culture. She cites all kinds of fancy literature, the Hebrew Bible, and then Native American concerns all wrapped up. And it was profound and fascinating.
That's awesome. Sounds really good.
Thank you, Sarah. I like that your role when I do this thing is just to make me not feel less nervous.
Hype man. No, I mean, I would like to check that out. I will have to start with the Book of Job, I think.
Yeah.
But perhaps I shall.
Everybody should start with the Book of Job. I think it's very humanizing. It's one of those things we talked about grief before on the show, where it's like it cuts right through all of the nonsense about all of the trite things we say to people when they're suffering, or all the ways that we try to make life palatable when it just isn't. The Book of Job is like, fucking, I am here for you. This is terrible, and you're going to hate it unless you're already suffering, in which case it's going to soothe you. Next. I've talked about this author briefly on the show before. This is David Lee, his book, A Legacy of Shadows, which is a collection of his poems from his early career. You can buy this book, A Legacy of Shadows. I highly recommend it. And just like flip it open and stick your finger down on any passage, and it will be hilarious and fun. And we're going to get into one more definition before we stop with all that nonsense. He writes narrative poetry for the most part, which is the most accessible form of poetry because it tells a story, right? You're not trying to pick apart the fine shades of meaning in one poem.
Is this the pig guy?
Oh, he's the pig poet.
Oh, okay, awesome. Yeah. Cool.
And there's one section of these poems where he's both a pig poet and the only white player in the Negro leagues, and he was a professional boxer and a pig farmer, and then a scholar. And there's a
pretty interesting dude.
Yeah, and he just loves pigs, man. He loves talking about pigs. He loves raising pigs, and he loves writing poetry about pigs and the people who work with pigs. And he's got recurring characters and stuff. There's one poem where he writes about his wife Jan, who seems wonderful, where he has given up his pig farm and become respectable. And he's a professor now, and he's working on poetry in Milton. And he's just kind of respectable, and that's okay. And then he hears his wife come home, and she calls him from the house and says, help me unload this truck. And he saunters out being respectable, and he sees a bunch of sheet metal and wood. And he goes, well, what have you done, Jan? Like, what is this? And then he sees that there's bags, and that the bags are moving. And this realization that his wife, realizing that he did not want to be respectful, has bought him pigs again so that he can return to pig farming. And it's the most sweet, heartwarming thing I've ever read, and I recommend it to you. David Lee.
That's awesome. Why were the pigs in bags?
I think that it was like a surprise thing. Like, I'm gonna tie up these pigs in a gunny sack. I'm not a farmer. What do I know? How do you move pigs? I want to be a farmer after reading this book.
No, you don't. There's no way.
No, I don't want to be. I want the. I want to act like a farmer. Like,
you want the farmer street cred.
I want the farmer street cred. I want that field cred.
That
sounds
cred.
wrong. That sounds fucked up.
It does, but no. Awesome. Well, so can you just give us those titles and authors one more time?
The Island of the Innocent by Diane Glancy. Boom. Also a nice picture by William Blake on the cover. That's very tasteful. Very tasteful. And then A Legacy of Shadows by David Lee.
Awesome. Thank you.
So yeah, we killed like 13 minutes with that shit with a cocktail and some book talk.
I mean, I wouldn't call it killing the 13 minutes. I think it was really interesting and cool. But
You had a
I
good
hear
time,
you.
everyone.
Yeah, no, I like it, Michael. Sometimes you know, I think you don't understand how interesting you are. I'm not trying to like be a weirdo at you on screen.
What else have you noticed about me? Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay.
I like where your head's at.
Well, with that, I think we're probably going to wrap up a little early today. I want to remind everyone to like and subscribe, specifically on YouTube, but also on Instagram and Facebook. And send us $10 if you're willing and able to @Mobtown-Live on Venmo. And next week we have Shauna Potter and Anaya Taylor, so that's going to be awesome. And then the week after that, also awesome, we have Songwriter X and a couple other guests. Oh, and next week we have Sarah Stroop coming on for the launch of our what was it? What did we?
American Originals was one of the
American Originals. That is our segment name, probably.
And for those of you who showed up late because our schedule was all crazy tonight because we were chasing Delegate Fisher, go back and watch the beginning, the interview with Delegate Fisher. She was stunning, and like both entertaining and interesting and good for you and the world.
Totally. Well, with that, I think that's our show, everybody. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you come back next week at 7 p.m.
Bye.
Bye.
Boys and girls, pay attention. Listen to the master.
Rock till you die. Rock till you die. You die alone and turning to bones. So rock till you die. Life is short, or so they say. What else is there but to rock and a wife? The nights on the hour, I'm doing in the shower. Never a flop, there's no reason to stop. I got my own guitar, I know all the chords. I play my cigar and lay it flat on the floor. The east and the west, the battles won't matter. Only the music can settle the score. Rock till you die.